My name is Alex Neofitu. I've worked in schools in and around Oldham for the past 14 years. My most recent post was as assistant head, where, due to the way the school is structured within a federation, my role was more like an in-class deputy. I've worked on curriculum developments in the schools I've worked in for the majority of my career. It's something I'm really passionate about, and I've also done a few bits with Focus over the past couple of years too. Claire has asked me to deliver this demo because I've worked a little bit on some elements of the Learning Challenge curriculum recently, particularly with vocabulary. And the work that Clive Davis has done on putting it all together over the past few years means that it's a curriculum that really works under the new framework and for the children that we teach. And I'm quite well placed to talk about it due to my recent involvement. I also want to emphasize that this demo isn't about selling a product to you. It's simply just to show you around the Learning Challenge curriculum, show you the problems it can solve for your school, and the reasons why at Focus we think that it's a really great curriculum. So I want to start by introducing to you the most important aspect of the Learning Challenge curriculum. Under the current framework, Ofsted often focuses on three big areas when it comes to foundation subjects. Those are progression, developing knowledge, and then assessment. They're not the only things, but they're three really big things that come up in discussions with Ofsted. And recently, going through a history deep dive in particular, those three things came up a lot. So the Learning Challenge curriculum really places you well in this sense. Throughout the whole of the Learning Challenge curriculum, the focus is on knowing more and remembering more. A lot of thought and work has gone into getting the progression right across each subject area, across each phase, and then also each individual year group. And it all revolves around principles set out in front of you here. So each unit has been carefully crafted so that children can make links to prior learning, first of all. Then they can begin their new learning and check that they understand this new learning as they go through. And then they can then demonstrate what they know and how they understand it in some way at the end of a unit, whether that's in books, whether it's through discussion or creating a presentation. There's all sorts of ways of doing this. And finally, after the learning is complete, they need to revisit that learning to ensure that it stays with them and it's committed to their long-term memory. And as we go through this demo, I'll explain how all of this works in more detail. So in primary schools, we often want to make sure that our curriculum has a focus or has a driver for the topics that we teach so that it links our curriculum together. The Learning Challenge curriculum supports with this by using history, geography, and science as the main drivers. This means you don't have to worry about deciding where to start if you're developing a curriculum from scratch or developing it from a different starting point. The Learning Challenge curriculum has it all covered for you and your school so that you don't have to worry too much about that. Often, as primary educators, we try to make links across subject areas too. And again, that's something that the Learning Challenge curriculum really caters for. Art and design and technology have just been revamped by Clive. This is so that they really focus on the knowledge and the skills that are required across each phase, which can then be applied to different topics. There are also a range of EYFS units that focus on the areas of understanding the world and expressive arts and design. So you don't have to worry about how they fit into the curriculum. The progression from early years all the way up to year 6 is completely planned, it's well thought out, and it ensures that learning builds on learning. The other thing that I wanted to point out here is that the Learning Challenge curriculum is something that doesn't stand still. We've recently added things like vocabulary progression overviews for history, geography, and science. And things like this are included as part of that Learning Challenge curriculum, and they're really useful for subject leaders. There are also lots of things being worked on in the background, behind the scenes, and we're hopefully going to be adding some planning soon and resources for other areas of the curriculum, which I've listed here, things like computing, RE, PE, French and music. Once they're finalized, they all become part of the subscription if you were to choose to sign up to it. So it really is looking at linking everything together really, really nicely. So that's a bit about what the Learning Challenge curriculum is. I want to show you a little bit now about how it's designed and how it works. And then I'll take you on a tour of the website itself. So I'll predominantly be using a history unit as an example here, but it does apply to the other subject areas that are available too. So we want to ensure, as I said before, that progression is planned and effective. And the Learning Challenge curriculum does this for you so that it saves time for curriculum leaders and subject leaders. For each subject, there are overviews and progression documents, as you can see here. I've taken a strand from history to show you. That strand is chronology and causation. And you can see that it goes through each year group, including early years, noting the key knowledge and understanding that the children need in order to be ready to move on to the next stage of their journey. This is done for other aspects of history too, and it's also done in geography and science and art and DTR, done in a slightly different way, but it's very similar. So to make life easier for teachers to see where their specific year group fits in, this is also broken down into individual year group strands. You can see an example here that's taken from Year 3 Science, where the substantive knowledge is set out really clearly under each of the 3 disciplinary areas and individual science topics. Now, as leaders, we want to have an overview of how the units of learning that we expect our teachers to teach are all linked together. So we also want to ensure that the key knowledge is being taught within each unit as well. The Learning Challenge curriculum has an overview for each unit of learning. Each unit is led by an overarching learning challenge question or composite. In this unit, as an example for Year 4 History, why was ancient Egypt civilization ahead of its time is the title. This is the overarching learning challenge question. It sets the children up with a real focus for their learning, and teachers and children alike to be really clear on the aims of their study over the course of the unit. This is then broken down into 4 or 5 components, which are again guided by a sub-inquiry question. I won't read them all to you, but you can see there that the first one, what was happening in Britain when the ancient Egyptians were at their most powerful, to the final one, why did the powerful Egyptians create a culture of slavery? And all of this is to support with answering that overarching learning challenge question. There are also details below at the bottom of the disciplinary knowledge that we're expecting the children to be able to develop across the course of that topic during in their year group. So we all know that teachers' time is precious. And what the Learning Challenge curriculum does is it saves time by providing teachers with everything they need in order to support children's knowledge development effectively. Each Learning Challenge question or composite includes the following things, which I'll go through on the following slides. So the first thing is a pre-assessment task. This is where children begin to make links to the things that they already know. And again, it's all set out for you in the resources. There is also a knowledge organizer for each learning challenge, for history, for geography, and for science, to both support teachers in terms of their subject knowledge, but also the children with their learning. You can see that it's got some of the key knowledge that they need during the unit. It's got some key vocabulary, it's got images and things like that, and it's got space to add things to this as they go through the topic as well. You then have resources for each component. So you can see how these sub-inquiry questions or components are broken down. There are resources for each component for teachers so that they understand what they need to teach. There are slides that can be displayed on screen or printed out for the children. You've got resources that can be used for independent learning tasks. And then there's links to further information on external websites and other sources of information too. You've also got, as part of each learning challenge question, you've got sets of retrieval activities. So for each unit, you can use these retrieval activities at appropriate points throughout teaching across a term or a half term, so that you can check in with children to know whether they're retaining knowledge. They can also be used at later dates when you're teaching other units, just to check in what can they remember about the different units that have been studied previously. And then finally, there are lots of assessment tasks. So at the end of each unit, there's an assessment task so that you can assess where the children are up to in terms of their knowledge acquisition, what they can remember, what you maybe need to revisit at a later time, perhaps as retrieval activities later on in the year. Any that aren't online yet, they will be soon. And this, like I said, this is something that's constantly being updated as part of the Learning Challenge curriculum. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you on a little tour around the website so that you can see how it's set up and how it can be navigated. So here's the Learning Challenge curriculum website. On the About Our Curriculum page, you can see here lots of information about how the curriculum has been put together, and lots of things that you can access if you want to find out even more. Within that, something that I think is really useful, you've got a questions for leaders section. And there's a document which I'll show you in a moment once I've gone through the website, which I think is really useful for leaders because it gives you questions to think about in terms of why you're implementing things the way that you're implementing them, your intent, your implementation, and your impact. It focuses on those three areas. And I'll show you that in a little while. It's really useful for leaders, especially if you're expecting perhaps Ofsted to pop along at any time. It gives you little things about what you maybe need to make sure that you're thinking about when you're speaking to them. Then we've got the rest of the tabs, which are kind of into the nitty-gritty of what the Learning Challenge curriculum does for teachers and staff. So you've got a subjects tab and a teachers tab. Now, this is brilliant because if you're a teacher, you don't want to be faffing around. If you're a teacher in year one, teacher in year four, you want to go to the teachers tab. You can go to your year group. I'm going to click on year four just as an example, and it will take you to everything you need for year four below. Okay, and you've got tabs directly there. If you don't want to go straight in through the year four, you can click, you go teachers again, go to year four, and as you can see, another set comes up, and you can just click on history if history is what you're looking for, and you can see the overview for your year group. Okay, so you can see here for year five, you've got your long-term overview documents there that you can download. You've also got your different units of learning, your learning challenge questions. Now, if you click on one of those, it will come up with your individual components. Again, you've got the main focus of the Learning Challenge curriculum, that link it, learn it, check it idea. And then you've got all of your resources here. So you've got your pre-learning assessment, you've got your knowledge organizer link, you've got each of the components, which when you open that, it comes up with a document with all of the necessary resources and your retrieval tasks at the bottom. Now, in the same way as if you're a teacher and you need to access something, the teachers tab is great. If you're a subject leader, we've got a subjects tab for you, and that makes it really easy. If you're in charge of geography, you can go and click on individual overviews if you want to for specific year groups, or you can just click on geography and it will take you to an overview of geography, and it gives you a link to a geography overview in terms of your progression mapping and things like that and all your units. So everything's there for you as a subject leader. The next tab along, curriculum briefings, there are things that you can access there that give you updates and information on recent changes to frameworks like the Ofsted framework and things like that. The leadership tab, again, similar to the subjects tab, is great for subject leadership. If I click on leading history, you can see that you've got all the different documents that you might need. So you've got your long-term overview, your progression overview, your knowledge organizers, and your vocabulary overview. And then the other tab that's really useful is this assessment one. So you can see here you've got assessing history, assessing geography, and then science is coming soon. They're under development, but they will be on there as soon as they're available for you. So if I click on assessing history, you'll be able to see, again, as a subject leader, it's brilliant because you have every single assessment for every single unit that you need. It's dead easy to navigate and find, and you just have to click on one of the links and it will download it for you. The final thing that I'll talk about is these end tabs. So this more tab, you've got lots of different things like blogs and articles and newsletters where you can find out further information. I'll click on the blogs for now. There's lots of blogs and articles that relate to the Learning Challenge curriculum. and the things that have been developed through using it. So yeah, that's the website. So what I'll do now is I will stop sharing that, and I'm just going to show you some of those resources that you can download. So I mentioned to you at the start of looking around the website this questions document. So you can see it here. You've got a range of questions about curriculum intent and some thoughts about how you might answer those questions relating to your curriculum. Again, it all links to the Learning Challenge curriculum. So if you're thinking about, well, why might this be useful? It's because if you do sign up in any way to the Learning Challenge curriculum, you've got all these thoughts around the intent of it. Then it goes on to the implementation of it and thinking about, well, how has it been developed so that it works in your school? And there's thoughts and ideas around that and things to think about. And then again, with impact, those 3 I's that we talk about, you've got more questions and more sort of thoughts and ideas about how you might think about answering those questions. And I think that can stand you in really good stead. I talked to you about vocabulary. These are all part of the Learning Challenge curriculum. So there's one for history, there's one for geography, there's one for science at the moment. And it basically, it's all built upon the idea of developing children's vocabulary effectively. It links to the vocabulary. They're on the knowledge organizers. It starts from early years. You can see the key language that is topic specific, so relevant to the units and the Learning Challenge questions. You've got information on vocabulary that is the key vocabulary at the top in bold. And then below that, there's another row with additional vocabulary and language that may come up during the topic that you might want to target with children to develop their understanding. Then towards the second half of that, you have some disciplinary vocabulary. And that looks a bit more like this. And it's broken down into the key areas of chronological understanding, knowledge of people, places, events, conceptual knowledge, and inquiry. In history, in geography, it's broken down into the geographical key areas, and the same with science. So they're really useful. As a classroom teacher, it means that you're not worrying about, well, what language am I trying to develop here? You've got it there in black and white. If you're a subject leader, then you know exactly the progression of that subject knowledge. So it's really supporting subject leaders and teachers alike. You've also got your history overview. So here you've got an overview of the names of the topics for history, but then you've also got all of the units broken down into their Learning Challenge question and then their 5 key components. So that's really useful from a subject leader's point of view, because it means you've got everything in one place and you know exactly what's being taught in which year group. Then you've got your knowledge organizers. And again, as a subject leader, you can download them all in one document. So I've got year 1 all the way through to year 6. But again, if you're a teacher, the Learning Challenge curriculum website means that you can just access the one that you need from your Learning Challenge question. So that's great as well. You've got both ways of accessing it. Here is an example of a component. So for the year 4 topic, why was the ancient Egyptian civilization ahead of its time? Component 1, what was happening in Britain when the ancient Egyptians were at their most powerful? You've got the resources for subject knowledge that I talked about, lots of links to websites that you can have a look at as a teacher. You've got resources that you can share with the children. There's timeline activities, there's images that you can present to them, there's discussion points and thinking about developing comparisons between different time periods, and then resources that you can use as part of the lesson so that children know what they're focusing on and their learning can be directed. This is an example of the retrieval activities that you can do. So you've got a check it thing here with a question, what do we know about archaeologists? You've got give me 5 facts about pyramids, about pharaohs. There are all sorts, for each topic, for each unit of learning, there are all sorts of retrieval tasks and activities that the children can undertake. And it helps with assessing in the moment, assessing in the lessons of what they can remember, what knowledge they have committed to their long-term memory and things like that. And then finally, here's an example of an assessment that links to the year 4 topic, the Year 4 Learning Challenge question regarding ancient Egypt. You can see here that they're dead straightforward. It's a series of multiple choice questions, all set out really clearly, and it's assessing key knowledge. It's assessing disciplinary knowledge here. You can see with the following questions, and then you've got formats for the children to complete those questions on, so that they're not just having to squeeze answers in. So there's a separate document for that. Got any images that they might need in order to answer some of those assessment questions, and other things about thinking about sources of evidence and things like that. So there's lots and lots there to support teachers with assessing children's knowledge and ensuring that children have taken away the key knowledge that they needed to learn during that topic. It also provides assessment information in terms of what might need revisiting later on if they haven't been secure in it during or just after the topic, so that you can review that later on in the year. And teachers really know then as well what disciplinary knowledge needs to be revisited when you look at other topics too. So that was the Learning Challenge curriculum website. Just to kind of round things off, like I said, it's not a sales pitch, but just so that you're aware of how things work, it's a yearly subscription. It does cost £500 plus VAT. Whilst we're talking about cost, if you were to add up all of the resources that are available on the Learning Challenge curriculum website, you're looking at around £2,000 to £2,500 worth of resources. So even if you were to sign up for 2 or 3 years, you're still saving an awful lot of money on your curriculum if you chose to do so. But yeah, that's how much it costs. All the resources are available online. Any updates that take place to the Learning Challenge curriculum are also all included as they become available. Any new resources that are part of the Learning Challenge curriculum, they are included as well. So there are constantly things being added, constantly things being developed, and it means that you don't have to worry if there are new things that need to be approached in terms of teaching and learning that have an impact on the Learning Challenge curriculum. Like I said, if that gets updated, you get the updates as soon as they're available. That brings me to the end of this demonstration. If you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch with Focus directly. And if there's anything I can do to help or support further, then I'd be more than happy to do so. But thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this demo. And hopefully, if either we can help you in some way with developing your curriculum, or you'll be, hopefully you can be successful in whatever you choose to do moving forward. But thank you very much for your time.